Hello friends and followers, welcome back to TJ's Modeling Bench. It is a midweek update. It's also What Did You Buy Wednesday, and I have got some things to share. Not so much in the What Did You Buy Wednesday department, but group build update for the Saturday night short track stuff. I had today off. I called in because my lower back was killing me and I knew I couldn't effectively do my job. So about midday today, it started to feel much better, and I made my way up here into the shop and got quite a bit done, but there is still quite a bit left to do. So with that said, let's get started. So the other night after work, I stopped by Hobby Lobby to get a couple bottles of Testors enamel paints, the little jars, and it just so happened to be their 40% off week. So in the kits, I found this, the chopped tea. I didn't have this, and for the price, $29.99, 40% off. So for $18, I effectively got two kits, because it does say here that you can build two complete cars. So that's going to be a fun one. Don't really know which direction I would go with it. I like that a lot. May try to do a patinaed paint job on it, maybe. We'll see. But that'll be in the future. I've got too many other things I need to work on still at this point. So let me turn the camera around and we'll show you some other things. I mentioned in a previous video that I had ordered another 3D printed engine that I got off a dealer on eBay, and I couldn't remember the name, but this is it. Neffyskustoms 3D printed parts, and there's his email address and phone number, and of course the QR code above that. Like I said, he's on eBay. He's got some, I think this is the first one I've purchased from him. I don't recall ever purchasing from this vendor before. But this is what it is, a Windsor Street Beast in 1/25th scale. And it comes in this nice clear box. Of course, it was in a cardboard box with bubble wrap inside for shipping. But so there's all your little pieces. Belt, carburetor, distributor, probably oil filters, one of those maybe. Not real sure. Breathers, perhaps. Here's our block. Pretty good. Got a little bit of cleanup to do. Not bad. Headers, which this might come in really handy. I know the kit headers for the Ford are horrible, and I may need to scrounge up some headers or create some of my own with solder. But these look like they might work out just fine. Hopefully that's true. All right, oil pan. Cool. Big old air cleaner. Might need a little bit of work done to it. Yeah, that's just cleanup stuff. That's nothing to worry about there. Valve covers. What does it say? Let's see if I can get this. Maybe not. Yeah. We're just going to focus. All right, well, it says Ford Racing on there, but there, maybe I can read it. Anyway, so Ford Racing valve covers. Here's our cylinder heads and our intake plenum. So I will I will clean that up real quick and get some glue on it tonight, and then I'll have both engines built and ready for some paint. And we'll do a little bit of weathering on both of them, just to give them that, used look for racing. My plan is to put drivers in these cars, and they don't come with drivers. I don't know why they do that. The airplane guys always have pilots, but the car guys never have drivers. Anyway, I have this kit of personnel, men, women, drivers, mechanics, but the problem is that this is in 1/24th scale. So I pulled out one of the driver figures and a couple of different heads, because one is more of an open face helmet, and then the other one is a full face closed helmet. And even though it's too big for my needs, what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to sculpt my own driver. I bought just this little package of Sculpey to practice with. And the reason I pulled this out and got it kind of mocked up was to use it for a size reference. So I know it's 1/24th and it's slightly too large to be used in these kits. Although it is pretty close. It's close, but it's still just a tad too large. But, like I said, I'm going to use that for reference to get all my proportions right. And we'll go through that process here in just a minute. Let me get set up and we'll get started. I actually started by making a little wire armature using some very small brass wire, easily bent, shaped. So this is roughly the size we're looking for. You can see it's a fair amount smaller than what this 1/24th figure is. And we're gonna flesh it out with aluminum foil, and then once we get that pretty well done, then we can go over it with our clay and actually sculpt it. And then when it's ready to be finished, you warm up an oven, place it in a 275-degree oven for 15 minutes per 1/4 inch of thickness. So, probably, I'm guessing when we're done with this, maybe between 15 and 30 minutes in the oven should seal it all up good. So let me flesh it out and then we'll start sculpting. All right, so we've got our fleshed out armature alongside our 1/24th scale figure. So now we need to get this open. And from what I've watched on other videos, it requires some kneading to make it more workable. So we'll set that aside and we'll just start with a chunk of it. How about that? And we'll knead it. Kind of softens it up, makes it a little more workable. It's actually pretty soft to begin with. Now, none of the videos that I watched pertained specifically to the Sculpey 3, which this one is, Sculpey 3. So I don't know if it's a newer modeling clay for that brand. I didn't see anything specifically on it. There were other Sculpey modeling clays that they were referencing, but I figure it's all roughly the same kind of thing. All right, so that's actually pretty soft. So what I'll do, and this will be just kind of rough to start with. So we'll thin this out and make a wrap. We'll go around the torso. We'll hit the torso and then the waist area, and then after those, we'll start sculpting out our arms and legs. All right, so starting out, we're just rough fleshing everything out. So we don't need a lot of dough. We're not doing a lot of technical shaping. All right, I've got a little bit of my aluminum foil coming unwrapped right there. I've got these old dental picks that I got years ago for doing similar stuff, actually. I don't recall exactly what it was I was doing, but it was suggested by another modeler that your dentist, these things wear out and they replace them, right? So after so many uses, they just get new ones and they throw them away. So they suggested that you ask your dental provider if they have any that they're gonna get rid of, and mine did, so I took them. All right, so there's part of an arm. See, and it's really rough, okay? Rough as in unfinished rough. Now this clay, this is really, really soft, which I kind of like. It's making this rather simple to do. All right, and I might need to keep moving this armature a little bit to get more of the shape I want with the arms and the legs, because I'm kind of moving it around, working with it so it's not staying exactly in the shape that I want. But like I said, this is the rough sculpture part. So not a lot of detail, just creating our form. You know, maybe even removing some if we think it's not going to look right. So it's all about shape, making the proper humanoid shape. All right, so here's our figure, and you can see size-wise, it's much smaller. The thing I have found with this Sculpey 3, and like I said, I've never used this before. I've never even tried to sculpt before, but it has been something I've wanted to do. This actually may be too soft. It's very hard to smooth out and keep any detail. So I may end up having to do this again with one of their other putties. Something that's a little more firm than this. This is rather fine, in fact. The let's call it the grain of the clay is very, very fine. And that may be part of the problem. So this is probably more like a finishing clay. Yeah, so we're gonna bake this, see how it turns out. Lessons learned, and then we'll go from there. Our sculpted figure has been baked. It's now solid. What have we learned? Well, sculpting isn't really that difficult as long as you get proportions right. The problem I'm having with this particular clay, and this is a polymer clay, you bake it to dry it, it's too soft. So there was no way that I was going to be able to get details like fingers and feet and a face on a head. Even trying to get, you know, like where the zipper would go on your one-piece driver suit, you know, and trying to smooth out some of these areas where I built up the putty. It's too soft, and you know, I'd be holding it, and without even trying, I would remove an area where I had built up something. So what I need to do is find a different clay that's not as soft, and I know they make it. I just got to figure out which one it is. That way we can do this again and get much better detail in it. But, you know, for a first attempt, I don't think this turned out badly. It's just not as detailed as I would like it to be. And that's mainly just because of the clay itself. It was just too soft for what we wanted to do. But as far as size, I think we did pretty well on the size. So you can see size-wise, he's right at about the proper size that we're looking for. And this can be sanded. Move that. So we can sand out some of those lines. But again, having a better clay to start with will make a big difference. You know, in fact, I can sand down his butt to get him in there a little bit better. But anyway, it can be sanded and it can be painted. So, you know, it's doable. It may take some practice if you've never done it like I have. But like I said, for a first attempt, I'm not really complaining. I think that's a very good start. Here I've painted my two engine blocks. The Chevy is Chevy orange and the Ford is Ford blue, obviously. And those are a mixture of the Tamiya acrylic paints that I primarily use. The Chevy orange is a 5-to-2 mixture of the X6 orange and 2 drops of the X7 red. So 5 drops of orange, 2 drops of red, or 10-to-4 is what I actually did. And then an equal amount of the X20A thinner. So 14 total drops of paint and 14 total drops of the X20A. And that gives what I think is a pretty close approximation to the Chevy orange for the block. And then the blue is done with 10 parts of, or 5 parts, let's say 5 parts of X14 light blue with 2 parts of X4 blue, and then equal amounts of the thinner with that one as well. There are a few, I think there's 2 or 3 different shades of Ford engine blue depending on what era you research. So how accurate either one of these are, you know. But I think in the end, the total overall look will you know, provide that engine color that, you know, you're after. Now, one thing I did do, and you'll see that that paint is kind of oversprayed. So I did the whole assembly and painted it in an enamel gunmetal. And then once that was dry, I took the AK Interactive Effects for chipping, and I brushed that onto areas of the block on each motor, and then I painted it with the acrylics. So when everything's dry, I can go back with a wet brush or a wet toothpick, and as I'm wetting the block area and scratching at it, it'll remove some of that that color, either the Chevy orange or the Ford blue, and it will expose the gunmetal color underneath, which, you know, maybe gunmetal isn't the right color for using on a block, but, you know, I'm thinking of a block that's been run, it's seen wear and tear, so the engine color, the factory color is, you know, probably something that these Saturday night short track guys, you know, did in their garage. They just hand sprayed it, you know, didn't prep the block. They just put that color on there to denote that it was a Ford or a Chevy. So I expect that to, you know, wear and chip. And so these engines, when they're done, will be all grimy and gritty and dirty and chipped paint and blah, blah, blah. So all the other details on the engine, I will hand paint. So that's why I wasn't too concerned about masking off, you know, just for the blocks themselves. So everything else I go in with a brush and hand paint that. And I'll probably do the majority of that with Vallejo paints because they seem to brush better than the Tamiya acrylics do. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you think it's appropriate.
Please like, comment, share and subscribe.